Now it is time to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Kenny.
My name's Kenny Lombino. I'm an alcoholic. How you doing? Looks like somebody drank out of both. Nope, this one's mine. Yes, I'm an alcoholic. And I guess I'm here to talk about alcoholism. First off, let me thank Laura for giving me this great honor to come here and speak. It truly is an honor to speak about what happened to me because I walked into those doors. Because nobody wanted to hear me speak before I got here. So Laura, thank you very, very much. And I want to thank all of you for making a 12-step call, on me. Because I know that I'm not alone, I know that the way I think is not unique, that we all are the same. And knowing that enables me to go to another meeting and enables me to stay sober another day. So thank you for that. I have friends here tonight, and I appreciate them coming. My youngest best friend is here tonight. He's only 14, and he probably should talk to his father about his judgment and friends, but nevertheless, he's here. And there's a lot of people here in this room that I know and I've known for a long time. So thank you for supporting me. For those of you who I don't know, I look forward to getting to know you, except for the ones I don't like, and I will tell you that we're all on an amazing adventure. So I always want to know when somebody gets up and speaks, I always want to know how old are they and how long have they been sober so I could properly judge them. So, so my last drink, well, let me tell you how long I'm sober, and I'll tell you about the last drink because there's a little break in between the last drink and the last drug. But March 9th, this past, I celebrated 25 years of sobriety. Thank you. Thank you. And I was 30 years old when I got here, so that makes me definitely middle-aged at 55. I never planned on staying here. All I wanted to do was find out how to not do cocaine. And this adventure has started. So anyway, so there's the deal. So I came in when I was 30. I came in to learn how to not do cocaine. And I was supposed to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. And for those of you who heard me last week at Malibu, I'm sorry you're going to hear it again, but the truth of the matter is I came here and I was 30 years old, as I said, so I was young, skinny, good-looking, had long hair, and listened to K-Rock. And now, my hair's short, I'm not skinny anymore, and I listen to The Wave. Oh, by the way, I want you all to notice I dressed up tonight. I have a blazer on. I'm schwitzing, so I'm going to take it off now. Thank you. That's all right. By the way, for those of you who identify, not that I'm going to talk about this, but if anybody identifies, I'm also a compulsive overeater, and I've been on a major slip. That fucking red velvet cake, man. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. I mean, the deal is that the reason I got 25 years, and this is all you got to do, and if I say nothing else and you just walked away with this, this is it. I don't drink and I don't use no matter what. That's the deal. That is without question the deal that's going on here. You come in because you've hit a bottom, and the only concept that you got to get is that you don't drink and you don't use no matter what. Everything else is secondary. Everything else will have to be done, but that's, for those of you who remember an e-ticket, that's the e-ticket at Disneyland. You got to grab that ticket. Very easy to say, very hard to practice, or at least for me, it was very hard to practice. But that's the thing that I have done consistently for 25 years. I haven't picked up a drink, and I haven't picked up a drug, no matter what has gone on in my life. And my life, for me anyway, my story is much more interesting, I think, in sobriety than what had happened prior to sobriety. But to identify quickly, and I know last week we had a speaker from the 60s, and I'm a speaker from the 60s. She was kind of a real, rock and roller, and I was just a rock and roll wannabe. But I grew up in the 60s, so it was a great time to grow up. I mean, everything was changing in the country. It was an amazing time to grow up, and I'm not here to dwell on that, but it was, pot was great. I smoked pot every day, for 15 years. I thought I would turn my grandkids onto it. LSD was the most amazing drug I ever took. 1969, I thought LSD was God's gift to man. Never mind. I loved it. And I did all the other stuff, THC and STP and, all of it. I did all of that crap, and I was an aspiring musician, and that's all I wanted to do was be a rock and roll star. And I was a drummer, and I had long hair, and I was in a band, and I was a really good drummer, but there was a million good drummers, and nothing ever really happened. And, so I read this book called Think and Grow Rich, and I cut my hair, and, that was the end of that era. But what I remember most about that was the first time when I got high on pot and my perception of everything around me changed. And specifically, I was able to turn off the voice of this Italian mother that I had that just drove me crazy, And I was able to turn that off. So from that through the time that I got here was just a period of experimentation, of doing things to enhance my perception about how I felt about me, how I felt about you, and how I felt about the world. And I thought it worked, I thought it worked. So I graduated from pot all the way through everything else and wound up moving to California in 1977. So if anybody wants to hear more war stories about drugs, I'll be glad to tell you them. But I don't think it's really important. Let me just end the drug part with this. I know what it's like to be up for 3 or 4 days in a row. You haven't slept. You've been crawling around the floor looking for anything to stick up your nose. One more time, those birds are chirping, and you swore they were never going to stay up that late again. The meter maid's going down the street in a Cushman go-kart, giving everybody tickets. And you're sitting there going, I can't believe I did it again. So I know what that's like. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to sit there at 4 o'clock in the morning and have nothing in your house, and you can't get to a store that sells liquor until 6. So all the stuff that happens to all of us happened to me, and it doesn't really matter about the amount that we did. But cocaine brought me to my knees. So I went to a Cocaine Anonymous meeting. I had heard about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't want to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought it was the corniest thing I ever heard about. I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. I knew this friend that was in AA, and he used to go to Rodeo at the original Rodeo, and he had the food commitment, and he made deviled eggs, and I just thought it was alcoholics, they eat deviled eggs. I wanted nothing to do with it. So I went to Cocaine Anonymous, and Cocaine Anonymous in those days was, there wasn't even a meeting every day, There wasn't even a meeting every day. And it was very small, but it was a group just like us, and I related. And in particular, I was very attracted to the secretary. And, and they said, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it. So I came to my second meeting, and she wasn't there. But that's what got me here. But I came because cocaine wasn't working. So my last drink was 10:30 in the evening, March 8th, 1983, and it was a Chivas Regal on the rocks at a nightclub at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. And I knew I was going to CA the next day, but I didn't know anything about sobriety at that point. I didn't know what sobriety was, so I just figured I'm having my little drink, I'm having my little joint. I hadn't done cocaine for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks before that, I hit this bottom at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I had snorted, I don't know, a half ounce, no, not a half ounce. I snorted a lot of cocaine, a quarter ounce, somewhere between a quarter and a half. It was all gone. I was having wild hallucinations. I was waiting for the police to come in. And I had this thought. I had this thought that I'd rather be dead, that I had ruined my life to the point that I'd rather be dead. I grew up on the East Coast, and I come from an Italian family, and when you're a man from the East Coast, and specifically from an Italian family, you were brought up that you never give up. You never give up. You self-will, determination, persistence, courage will get you through anything. Yet here I was thinking that I'd rather be dead. And that scared me, and that was the first spiritual awakening I had. Because right after that thought, the next thought was, if I didn't stop right then, that psychosis would turn into, why don't you kill yourself? So I got up off the floor, and I looked in the mirror, and I said a prayer, and I drank myself to sleep. And the next day, I made a series of phone calls. And I called a friend of mine who had 2 weeks prior to this joined both AA and CA together, which I thought was a little obsessive on his part. But I said, his name was Jack, and I said, I want you to take me to one of those meetings. And he said, great, I'll be right over. I said, well, I don't actually want to go now. Drive me to the airport. I'm going to go to Hawaii. When I come back, you can take me to a meeting. So I didn't know about sobriety. So sobriety, as I understand it today, as we practice it in this fellowship, as I would tell anybody that I sponsor, sobriety is total abstinence from anything that affects me from the neck up. So, I was a cokehead, but I can't drink. And I love to smoke pot, but I can't do that. And I can't take pills. And I can't even, suck the gas out of a whipped cream can. The 10-second buzz, can't do it. But I didn't know that. So I come to the meeting, I see the 20 people there. I saw the secretary, and they talked about sobriety, and they talked about the big book, and they talked about not drinking and not using. And they had questions and answers. And I, in typical alcoholic fashion, because I have an inferiority complex coupled with a large ego, I raised my hand and I said, well, what do you got to do to get one of those chips? Because I wanted to come up and tell you how to stay sober. And they said you had to stay totally clean and sober from anything that affects you from the neck up for 30 days. And I said, well, you don't understand. I don't have a problem with pot. And, the group kind of laughed, and then some dick in the back of the room, under his breath, but loud enough for me to hear it, says, well, if you don't have a problem with pot, then it won't be a problem to not use it, will it? He was like, fuck you, So that's where it started, that's where it started. And I heard all the stuff that we hear. Get the big book, go to meetings every day, get phone numbers, get commitments, all of that stuff. I knew nothing about it, although I did remember hearing about that fourth step, and I immediately knew I didn't want to do it. But as I said earlier, I was attracted to that secretary, so that's why I came to the second meeting. But that's the deal, that's the deal. We don't drink and we don't use no matter what happens. And as I just said a moment ago, for me, it was easy to say and hard to practice. It's really hard to practice. And I'm a little off my game tonight. I'm a little freaked out, and I'll tell you why. Somebody right before the meeting tonight came up to me and told me that one of the guys that I sponsor, and I've known this guy for over 2 decades, and I love this guy, is out there getting loaded and hasn't told me. And I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love being sober, but there's one thing that I fucking hate about being in this program, and that's that I've been to too many goddamn funerals. I have seen so many people not get it and think that one more time they could get loaded, and they die. They blow their brains out. And when this guy told me this, and I spoke to this cat, the last 2 days in a row, said nothing about it, said, sorry, I can't be here tonight, I got, something else going on. Everything was cool. And then I hear this, And the cat that told me tonight, asked me to not say nothing. And I said, okay, fine. I'm not going to say nothing, but it's on you if this guy overdoses and dies, because you're asking me to not say nothing. And I told him I'll give him 24 hours to tell him that he told me. But that's what happens here. That's what happens here. I've had so many friends, people who got it. You would have bet that they got it. And something happens. And that's why I say it's really easy to say, don't drink and use no matter what, but very hard to practice. I've heard some of the most eloquent speakers from this podium. I've heard some of the most comedic speakers from this podium. Some of the most spiritual speakers from this podium. I'm not any of those guys. I'm a run-of-the-mill, plain, ordinary, drug addict, alcoholic from Teaneck, New Jersey, which is enough reason to get loaded. Especially if your whole family's from Brooklyn, and you popped out in Teaneck. But I was conceived in Brooklyn. Got Brooklyn blood running through these veins. But I'm just a regular guy, I dropped out of high school, got a GED, went to college, dropped out of college, never accomplished anything great. Was always, I was one of those guys that would snort up a lot of coke and take out a legal yellow pad and make lots of lists. Big lists of all the stuff I was going to do. And never did any of it. So coming here, it's changed my life. It's turned my life around, because all I did was what I said when I came up here at first, is I didn't drink or use no matter what. That's all I did. Now, there's certain principles and tenets that we need to learn and we need to practice, or at least I did, and they're right here. They're the 12, those are the traditions, I think, and those are the steps. But that's the thing that enabled me to get through all of the stuff that life throws at me. And life could really be a drag, or at least it was a drag for me. Because here I come into this program, I think I'm a cocaine addict. You tell me I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink. I can't smoke pot. I get this, I've only had 2 sponsors, one for 25 years and I had one for 3 months. And the first one was this loud, obnoxious New Yorker who was tough as nails, and he said to me, this is what you're going to do. You're not going to drink and use no matter what. You're going to go to a meeting every single day. You're going to get there an hour early. You're going to sit up in the front, because the sickest people sit up in the front, and Lord knows you're the sickest fucker I ever met. You still got a car, so you're going to drive newcomers to the meetings. You're going to drive them home. You're going to do whatever I tell you when I tell you. You're going to set the meeting up, take the meeting down, go out to coffee with alcoholics. When the meeting is over, you're going to stay out late enough that you're so tired that you'll go home and go to sleep. And by the way, you're unemployed, so you're a fucking bum. You're on bum status, and you're not getting off of bum status till you get a job. Tom Kenny, for any of you who know him. Now, I was lucky in the sense that I got sober at a time when being sober was kind of new. It was very, very hip, and those of us who came in really embraced it. The class of 1983, there was a majority of us still sober. And all we did was go to meetings and go out to coffee and look to get 13-stepped or 13-step somebody. But that's what we did. And there's nothing wrong with that. For those of you who think that you can't get a relationship in the first year, I just want to ask you, show me where it says that in the big book. Thank you. What it's about is honesty. That's what it's about. It's about not drinking and using and being honest in all of your affairs. So, man, you're new. You see somebody cute across the room, go talk to them, man. You want to, go out to coffee? You want to do whatever the fuck you want to do? It's great. We don't get loaded. But what we don't do is we don't manipulate, we don't lie, we don't cheat, we don't use people. So that's what I did. So this guy's telling me to go to all these meetings, and I'm going to these meetings, and I've got commitments all over the place, and I'm dealing with life, and I was on the proverbial pink cloud, and then all of a sudden everything falls apart. I hated sobriety. And I came into the program, and within a couple of months, I 12-stepped my girlfriend, who later became my fiance. And in those days, I was an avid skydiver. I'm in retirement, but I'm still a member of the United States Parachute Association. But all I would do was go to meetings, And on the weekend, I'd come to Rodeo. When it was at Rodeo, we'd leave Rodeo and drive out to the desert and jump out of airplanes. And I met some groovy skydivers who were in the program. And I've had some very great, although short, meetings in free fall. And short meetings. And I've given a cake and received a cake in free fall. Very, very groovy experience. You got to use one of those candles that doesn't go out. But that's what we would do. So I'm going to meetings, and I couldn't get it together work-wise, and I must have had 30 jobs in my first 5 years of sobriety. And I'm working those steps. And it's the step. What happens is you come in, at least I came in, and I was lucky enough to grab that concept that I don't drink and don't use no matter what. And I go to meetings, and I get a sponsor, and I work those steps. And I did the best that I could with working those steps. And I was powerless over alcohol, and it certainly made my life unmanageable. Every time I drank, I used cocaine. And then it was 3 or 4 days later, so I got that. So I'm coming to meetings. I 12-step Shelley. We're here at Rodeo. I got commitments. This is a very special meeting to me. Of the 25 years that I've been sober, I've had a commitment here for 20 of them. I took a 3-year break, and I took a 2-year break. But I'm coming to these meetings, and we're going out to the desert skydiving, and I'm in CA, and I'm doing all this stuff, and everything's great, and we're all hanging out. We're all going to Architects of Adversity. We're all in the daytime. We're going to CA in the nighttime. We're coming to Rodeo on Friday night, and, it was a great, the 80s was great. I mean, the chicks were great, and everything was great. So we, 11 months into this deal, I haven't done a 4th step. I've worked the first 3 steps. I'm hating everything and everybody. I'm angry because everybody's got it together but me. Everybody's got a fucking Ferrari but me, Everybody's got a great-looking girlfriend or boyfriend, but me. Everybody's got a great job but me. I just couldn't get it together, and I was just so angry. But what I did is I went to these meetings, and I shared. I just shared. And I'd get up at podiums, and I'd say, fuck you, and I hate the program, and I don't understand why I can't drink, and I was a real asshole to a lot of people. And people just would laugh and say, keep coming back. So 11 months into this, and I'm sponsoring a guy, and I'm running a meeting, and February of 1984, I left Rodeo, and Shelley and I drove out to the desert and to go skydiving the next day. And we had a great day skydiving. That was February the 4th. And about 4:30 in the afternoon, Shelley went up to make her last parachute jump. And I was on the ground, and she had a pink and purple parachute. And she had a problem. And the problem turned into, unfortunately, a fatality. And I watched my fiance die, hit the ground in front of me, 11 months sober. And it's a sight that no one should ever see. I mean, no one should ever see a friend die. Certainly no one should ever see their loved one die. No parent should ever see a kid die, but it's a sight that I'll never forget. And, and I blame myself because she never skydived until she met me. And, but I've been going to these meetings for 11 months, hearing all the things that we hear at these meetings. I've been working these steps to the best of my ability. And I walked up to a guy, and he was drinking a beer, and I looked at that beer, and I said, I could drink. No one could tell me that I don't fucking have the right to drink. I just watched the woman I was going to marry die. But I've been coming here, and I've been hearing you, and I knew that drinking that beer would not make Shelley stand up. And I was with a friend, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go to a meeting. And we drove 120 miles back from the desert, and I went to a meeting. And it had been on the news, and everybody knew, and everybody in AA rallied around me. Neil was there. We had meetings at my house every night. 400 people showed up to her memorial. And it was the saddest thing that I'd ever gotten through, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is that you people gave me the tools via the steps to get through that and not drink. Because when I drink, bad things happen. When I stay sober and when I'm willing to feel life, on life's terms, things get better, although sometimes they take time. And I was able to get through that because of you. People did not leave me alone, literally, for a week. They were at my house. And then I took off for a week to a skydive camp and jumped my ass off. But I got through that, you know? I got through that. And I thought that was going to be the most difficult thing I ever been through until a year later, and I went through a suicidal depression. Because here I am in AA, going to meetings, doing it all. But I really didn't get it yet. I didn't get it. I didn't get that step 1 and step 2 I was okay with. But step 3, making this decision to turn my will and life over to God as I understood him, was very, very difficult for me. I had a lot of confusion with that. And I didn't get it. And I didn't, unfortunately, get it for another couple of years. But I kept going to these meetings. I go through this suicidal depression. I wanted to kill myself every day because I was a loser. I was a loser, had always been a loser, and knew I would always be a loser. And someone in the program said to me, and I mean, I was sharing about it all the time, and, you know, sometimes people will say, all right, get off the fucking pity pot. You know what? And that's fine, but I got to tell you, when you're going through something, every one of us has our own time frame on that. Some of us can get through it quickly, some of us are slowly. And Eileen W. came up to me and said, Kenny, you just keep sharing, you just keep going to meetings, you just keep not drinking, and one day, a day will go by and you'll realize that that day went by and you didn't want to kill yourself. And I'm here to tell you that it happened. And that's how it worked. I was willing to work the steps, not drink, show up, share, and wait for something to change. What was the next indicated action? I remember I was sharing once at Architects of Adversity, and I don't know how many people in here remember this guy. He passed away, but it was a guy named Richard the Poet. Very, very crazy character. But he had an amazing insight. I was sharing at the meeting that I couldn't stand it any longer. I couldn't do it anymore. I wanted to get loaded. And I said I was going through a nervous breakdown. It was not going to happen for me. And this cat came up to me and said, Kenny, you're not going through a nervous breakdown. You're going through a nervous breakthrough. And I'll never forget that. And that is what happened. I went through a breakthrough of how to deal with life on life's terms, a day at a time, and not get loaded. And I'm here to tell you that that worked. You know, I've never taken any antidepressants. For me, my experience is that you work those steps, you don't drink, you grab a newcomer, you grab somebody who's newer than you, and you just talk to them about staying sober and drive them to meetings. And things change. You know, the next year, I tried to join the armed services. And they thought I was qualified to be a clerk, typist, or an assistant cook. You want to talk about feeling like a loser? I was going to join the Navy, take the oath. The minute they accepted me, I was going to drink. And I figured I'll learn some trade, I'll marry some trailer chick and move to Pomona, you know? And they didn't want me. They didn't want me. And I started to cry, and I didn't cry in front of them, but I left the recruiters, and I'm outside on the sidewalk, and I'm crying like a baby. You know, Mr. Brooklyn, you know, thinks he's from Brooklyn. Crying, you know, on the street. And I went to a fucking meeting, you know, and I shared about it. And I got through that. This is what happened. I finally did the inventory, which I'd love to tell you was the most amazing experience that ever happened. It wasn't. It sucked. But what did happen is it took all the power away from all of that crap that I thought I was going to take to my grave. But I didn't really feel the effect of it until months later. But I found myself in New York on a business trip. And again, I was just thinking, I'm a loser, always have been, always will be. Nothing's ever going to change. I've been working the steps. I've been going to meetings. I've been sharing. I've been doing all of this stuff, and nothing's changing. And I grabbed a drink. I grabbed a friend of mine's scotch, and I had it this close. And I was just about to gulp it, and I remembered a speaker I had heard years before at Sundowners who said she was going to drink. And when she was going to drink, she said, "Dear God, help me not drink." And this all happened in an instant. And I said, "Dear God, help me not drink." And I put the scotch down, I picked up a pack of Marlboro Lights, and I wasn't a smoker at the time, and I lit one up and I smoked. And I got through the moment, I went up to my hotel room and I called somebody in AA in New York who came out in a taxi cab and took me to a meeting. And I got through the day. I got through the night, and I didn't drink. And I found myself in Chicago, and if those of you who remember when you were here in March, this friend of mine came out and gave me a cake. But this guy and his then girlfriend, now ex-wife, were newcomers. I shared that I was going to get loaded, and these two newcomers hung out with me for fun and for free. And they just hung out with me all day long, and that's when it finally hit me. The big book says, and it says it in the preamble, that our primary purpose is to stay sober and help another alcoholic achieve sobriety. That's it. Doesn't say anything about relationships, money, cars, houses, none of that stuff. It says to me that my primary purpose is to stay sober and help another alcoholic achieve sobriety. And it clicked. And that's when I got it. That's when I realized that taking the third step meant for me that if I turned my will and life over to God, that anything that happened was okay. Didn't mean I was going to like it, but it was okay. As long as I could stay sober and understand that sobriety is a gift. It's a gift that was given to me, and the only way I could keep it is to help other people stay sober. Then that's all my life was about. And everything turned around from that point. And that was November of 1986. Now, from then to now, I mean, my life has been an amazing ride. I can tell you that I've fallen in love in the program, and I got married in the program, and I got divorced in the program. I can tell you that I have been through an amazing amount of crazy stuff in the program and stayed sober. I could tell you that I went back to school and I learned a career, and I've been doing the same thing now for 21 years. And the outside stuff that all of us desire and like has come to me, and it's very nice to have it, and I wouldn't want to lose it, but it means nothing. I could tell you that when I gave up the idea of ever falling in love again, all of a sudden, I'm in love again. I could tell you that everything that I ever thought that I wanted, once I got to the point that I was willing to say, it's okay, I don't need it, I don't have to have it, has come. Now, that is not because if you work the steps, all the things you want are going to come. It's because I changed my attitude about what I wanted in life. And what I wanted was to stay sober. I never want to go out and live the way I lived before. I don't want to be like this cat who I now know is getting loaded, and he doesn't know that I know yet. I don't want to ever go through what he's going through. I mean, it must be terrible to go through that right now. That's what I want. I want to stay sober. I want to always remember that this is a gift that's been given to me. It's a gift that's been given to me by God, or whatever your concept is, and I get to maintain that by action and by talking to you and working all 12 of those steps. You don't drink and don't use no matter what. That's what I did, and I got to a point that I was either going to get loaded, kill myself, or work a step. So I was forced to work the steps. And from working the steps, my perception changed. And I would just do whatever the next indicated action was. Whatever my sponsor said. I'll never forget when I was going through the suicidal depression, my sponsor today, Al S., and he's been my sponsor for 25 years, said to me, Kenny, he said to me two interesting things, and I'm going to end it with that. But he said to me, first off, Kenny, God didn't save you from drowning to kick you to death on the beach. I mean, think about it. We get sober, we come here, we go through all of this stuff, and then we think life's going to be sucky, it doesn't make any sense. The other thing he told me when I was going through that suicidal depression, he said, dude, he didn't say dude, he said, Kenny, he said, if you kill yourself, what if hell is the life you're living right now for eternity? And he said, what if heaven, when you get there and the pearly gates open, is a bar that goes on for infinity? And all the drinks are free, and all the peanut jars are filled with your favorite pills, you never get a hangover, and all the chicks say yes. That was a very interesting concept. But it enabled me to stay sober one more day. So my time is up. I can tell you that I love being sober, even when I don't. I'm not one of those speakers that could say to you, you know, my worst day sober wasn't, whatever that expression is. My worst day using was not as good as my best day, whatever it is. I hated being sober, and I loved being loaded. But it all changed around. It changed around because I worked 12 steps, and I'm willing to help another alcoholic achieve sobriety if I can. I say my last name, and my phone number is listed in the phone book, which nobody ever thinks to use, but you dial 411, you call me, and you tell me, Kenny, I'm going to get loaded, man, I need your help. I will help you. Not because I'm a great guy, because people did it for me. I wouldn't be sober if it wasn't for you. And if I can do it, any of us can do it. Any of us can do it. We help each other. We get through the moment. We do the next indicated action. We cry, we share, we laugh, we stay sober. It's the greatest deal on the planet. Thanks very much for letting me share.